Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And I think I'm going to follow up on the same point that Senator Alexander was making, but from a little different perspective. It's clear to me that our country needs strong early childhood education system. Investments in our children are investments in the future. And that's why I'm pleased to join President Obama and Chairman Harkin and so many others in the push for substantial increases to investment in early education. Research shows that the payoffs in these investments is greatest when the early education programs are of high quality. So if we want to increase investments in early education, we need to be very careful that we're investing only in high quality models. Now, we can try to ensure quality from the outset by using certain conditions like class size or a well-designed curriculum. But we also need to have a way to determine whether we're making the right investments. So what are the metrics that we should be tracking to determine whether states are investing in practices and programs that work? Anyone, just tell me who'd like to answer this. Dr. Yoshikawa?
Yes, systems, Head Start has made progress on that, as you know, in the last reauthorization by instituting a progress monitoring tool, the classroom assessment, which Mr. King also mentioned is being used in Louisiana. So taking the pulse of a system's quality is extraordinarily important. This is not about high-stakes assessments that are then tied to hiring and firing decisions, but this is about how systems have done this at scale. In the research world, I think we very much value pilot programs, but only in situations where we really don't know what to do. We now know how to implement high-quality preschool at scale across entire states, like Oklahoma. So I think we're far beyond the point of pilot programs, given the scale of the need of young children in this country.
And could I ask you to say, Dr. Yoshikawa, just for all of us, a little bit about the kinds of data that are tracked so that we're assuring ourselves that we're spending our money in the right places?
Sure. The class assessment, for example, is observational, so it is not about what's typically done, which is a supervisor coming in and checking only about class size or group size, ratios or those kinds of things. It actually gets at the quality of interactions between teachers and children related to instruction, related to classroom management, related to their ability to be responsive in their interactions with children. That's the aspect of quality that matters a great deal for children's learning.
Good. Thank you. I had another question I wanted to ask about, and that is about preparing the workforce. There seems to be a growing consensus that better educated teachers are critical to building a high-quality pre-kindergarten program. But I think there are still some big questions about how we get there and who's going to pay for it. Increasingly, state and federal policymakers are considering measures to require preschool teachers to get at least some college training. Proposed legislation in states often says that teachers should have early childhood degrees or be in a related field. But the content of these teacher preparation programs vary, and there seems to be an opportunity to improve these preparation programs if we can be more specific about what we need from them. So I wanted to start by asking, what does the research on early childhood education tell us about the kinds of skills that teachers need to be effective in the classroom? Ms. Ewen, did you want to answer on that, or anyone?
I'll let her start now.
Okay, good.
So qualifications are important. One of the ways that they're important, and issues like compensation, is that we have a terrible situation where with the average pay of preschool teachers teaching children 1 or 2 years older, it can double your salary. So we have enormous teacher turnover, which is not good for stable systems, and it's not good for child development. The approaches to improving teachers' skills in the classroom, which include this structured curriculum plus the coaching and mentoring in the classroom, have been proven with teachers of a variety of qualifications and skill levels, so including childcare providers, Head Start teachers, as well as BA level public pre-K teachers. So again, we know how to create high quality, tailored to different skill and qualification levels of the teacher and caregiver workforce.
Ms. Ewen?
The only thing I would add is we look to teachers who are strong on instructional support, that is, they know how to talk to children, to scaffold their learning, to ask higher order questions of children, to build their vocabulary, that we look to them for emotional support of children's full range of development, and we look to make sure that teachers are prepared to use the classroom environment to support how children learn, that is centers, play areas, those kind of things. We find that BA degree teachers with early childhood experience are critical to that, as is a second adult in the room with early childhood experience. But we also need that ongoing coaching and professional development, because teachers need a lot of help in managing the individual children that they get. We're getting many more children with special needs. We're getting many children from language minority backgrounds. And those things may well be taught in college environments, but teachers need the help and support they can get on a daily, weekly basis to build those skills.
And I think Ms. Brantley wanted to add something.
Just to build on what has already been said, some of the things we're also learning is that our teacher preparation programs, as you pointed out, aren't necessarily hitting the mark either yet. And we have a lot going on with that in Colorado right now, with a new set of core competencies for early childhood professionals that we are now working to embed within college coursework and mirroring it with coaching actually at the same time. One of the pieces that we have really begun to learn, we have not been doing a good job of preparing our teachers through college coursework in math and in science. We've spent a lot of time around early literacy, around helping make sure that teachers are having the kinds of conversations that Danielle is pointing out, but we're also learning that they aren't necessarily competent themselves, particularly in the area of math, to be able to then bring that down appropriately to a 2-year-old, 3-year-old, 4-year-old kind of a level. So as we redid our early learning standards in Colorado, we paid very special attention to what we should be expecting our 3-, 4-, and 5-year-old kids to know and be able to do. Now, how do we make sure our teachers know how to be able to encourage that development in those fields of those young children?
Thank you. That's a very interesting point, and I see that I'm out of time, so I'll quit. But I do want to say, so long as teacher pay remains so low for our youngest learners, we're going to have difficulty attracting and keeping teachers in this area. And we really have to ask how realistic it is to say that we're going to raise the standards, expect people to go to school, to incur more college loan debt, when the consequence is to leave them in a profession where they won't be able to pay off that debt. And so I think these pieces are related to each other. We must come back to them. I thank you all very much for your work, and thank you for being here. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.